This call is now being recorded.
क्या बात हुई?
कोई बात नहीं हुई,
पंडित जी से
कोई बात नहीं हुई। उन्होंने जज को फोन किया था,
किन्होंने?
शर्मा जी ने।
जज को?
हाँ,
मुकेश सर,
मुकेश
आप म्यूट कर लीजिए तब तक।
अरे जज के। अच्छा। फिर
बोले कि ताऊ जी से मिल लो और फिर जज से अगर मिलने का होगा तो बता दे, ये बोल के
शरद के जन्मदिन का
कह रहे
ये खाली है बाबा जी।
आपको पता है कि सभी पता
हैं?
अब शरद को फोन किया था कि किसको फोन किया था? फोन तो किया था सामने
है।
में।
मुझे कह रही कि उसी के ऑफिस में किया मैंने फोन, में छुट्टी है।
Do we have participants from both the teams here? 519 and 549?
Yes, ma'am. The team members of 519 are present.
All right. Please make sure that you check your video and audio right now so that there is no issue later on. (549), one of the speakers and the researcher is missing. Right. You may all please check your mics as well.
I request court master to clarify me whether I am audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
549, speaker 1 is audible and visible. 549, speaker 2. You are not audible.
Ma'am, am I audible now?
Yes, now you're audible. 519, speaker 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you are audible. 519, speaker 2.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all audible and visible. अभी भी leave किया.
There is. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There is the other judge, Kumar Mukesh.
Yes, sir. He's joining, sir. There is some technical glitch in between. He's joining within 2 or 3 minutes. Just joining.
So these are the young crowd who's going to have. The moot court is slightly different from the actual court.
Yes, sir.
Actual court is. I always give an example. Actual court is like your girlfriend or a boyfriend, whichever. Huh? When a girlfriend is happy, you'll get everything. When a boyfriend is happy, you'll get everything. But if she is annoyed, then God bless you. And similarly, if a boyfriend is annoyed, then God bless you. So judges, the actual court, the judges are like girlfriend, boyfriend. Huh? So you may find this very friendly, but
Well, Mukesh sir has also joined.
Hello Mukesh, how are you?
Sir, you are on mute. Mukesh sir, you're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Lalit. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are. Some technical. Sir, am I audible?
No, you are audible to me.
Yeah. Sorry. Sometimes my voice is getting echo. Why? Never mind.
Because my voice is also off. मुकेश सर आपके सिस्टम वॉइस दोबारा क्या आ रही है?
Pardon? Is there any echo? Is there any problem?
Yes, sir. There is a problem, and I think it's coming from your system.
Okay.
Maybe if all the speakers have opened that could be one of the reasons.
Mukesh sir's system is having some echo. Mukesh sir, you may keep yourself muted and then you can unmute whenever you're asking questions, because I think there is some echo problem from your system.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Now, yes, there is no echo. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. There is no problem.
Now it's not echoing.
So I think there was some issue with Mukesh sir's system. Maybe he's gone. I'll see.
Now friendly?
Yeah.
Now is it okay?
Yes, sir.
The moment Mukesh's mic is on, he's otherwise also echoed person. Their voice gets echoed everywhere.
Okay.
From a system. Some. Sir, in any case, I suggest.
Yeah. Again, it's getting echoed.
Because otherwise there's no issue.
मुकेश आपको जब बोलना रहा तब ऑन रखना, नहीं तो वो इको करता रहेगा.
मैं अभी करता हूँ.
Yeah, it's okay now. No echo.
So should I start then?
Yeah,
with the
please.
permission of the honorable judges.
No, not honorable. We just. I told you, you know the courts. Huh?
I know, sir.
They will.
But
Yeah.
first of all, I extend a very warm welcome to all the participants, teams, and our honorable judges to second virtual National Criminal Moot Court competition organized by the Adhivakta Parishad Delhi High Court Cell. And I am Ishwarya Dobhal, advocate. However, for today, I'll be acting from the other side of the bench and I will be the court master for these proceedings. And before we begin, I will introduce the teams to our honorable judges for today. We have with us Kirti Uppal sir, who joined the bar in 1986, started his career with Justice Swatantra Kumar and then with Justice S.K. Mishra. And being a first generation lawyer himself, he was very gladly accepted by the bar. He's been the secretary, vice president, and thereafter president as well of the Delhi High Court Bar Association in consecutive terms. Sir was designated a senior in 2011 and has been practicing in all courts in the territory of Delhi as well as all over India. We extend a very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you so much for gracing us today.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure.
We also have with us Kumar Mukesh sir. Sir graduated from DU Law Faculty, enrolled himself in the year 1998 and has been practicing since in the territory of Delhi as well as all over India in almost all fields of law, but primarily criminal law, which is coincidentally our problem for today as well. And at present, sir is also an elected member of the Bar Council of Delhi. I extend a very warm welcome to you, sir, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for gracing. Now, with the judges, maybe start the rounds. I request both the teams to please give their timings, and before that, I will also share brief rules for this round. So just give me a minute. Yes. Are the rules visible on screen? Right. I request team 549. So if I may state the rules in brief, each team will get 30 minutes of time, out of which every speaker of each team will not get more than 20 minutes of time. For rebuttals, not more than 5 minutes will be given. So therefore, now I request both the teams to tell us in what measures they want the timings for each speaker.
Ma'am, from team 549, speaker 1 will be taking 15 minutes. Speaker 2 will be taking 12 minutes, and for rebuttal we'll take 5 minutes of time, ma'am.
Right.
Ma'am, for team 519, representing the difference, speaker 1 will be taking 13 minutes, speaker 2 will be taking 12 minutes and 5 minutes for rebuttals. Thank you.
Now, with the permission of the judges, may we please begin the round.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Your Lordship.
All the best to all the speakers.
Thank you, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, the prosecution seeks permission to start the statement of jurisdiction.
कुमार म्यूट करना पड़ेगा फिर इको हो रही है.
Your Lordships. Your Lordship, with your permission, much pleasure, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, coming to the statement of jurisdiction, the counsel for the petitioner, State NIA, hereby humbly approach Honorable Court of Lodi Special Judge, NIA, Patiala House Court, New Delhi, under Section 173, Clause 2, Subclause 1 of CRPC. The petitioner would humbly submit to the jurisdiction of this Honorable Court. Your Lordship, with your permission, can I move on to the statement of charges?
One small request which I always make it in moot court. Just 2 minutes of background why you have come to this court. You know, what is the issue? Like, is it concerning FIR? Is it concerning some IPC offense? Is it concerning, because a judge is not supposed to know anything. You have to start, give up, this time will not be counted for your this thing. A brief background in 2 minutes and then start with your case.
Pardon, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, can I know whether you're asking about this case?
Why have you come to Patiala House Court? You see, when you go to the actual court, you just don't start statement of charges. You say, I am a petitioner, I am a respondent, such and such thing has happened, FIR has been filed, and to
Yes,
quashing
Your
of that FIR I've come. So that's the background in just 2 minutes, not more than 2 minutes. Your time will start now.
Much pleasure, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, according to Section 173, Clause 2 of Subclause 1, as soon as it is completed, the officer in charge of the police station shall forward to a magistrate empowered to take cognizable of the offence on a police report, and a report in the form prescribed by the state government stating the name of the parties, the nature of the information, the names of the persons who appear to be acquainted with the circumstances of the case, whether any offence appears to have been committed, and if so, by whom, whether the accused has been arrested, and whether he has been released on his bond, and if so, whether with or without sureties. And also, Your Lordship, whether the report of medical examination of women have been attached where investigation relates to an offence under sections 376, 376A, and 376B, Your Lordships. If you're satisfied now, can I move on to the next statement of charges, Your Lordship?
Yeah, go ahead. When we are doing this, go ahead.
Much
Unless
pleasure, Your Lordship.
Judge Kumar Mukesh has something else.
No, nothing. Go ahead. You
Your Lordship.
carry on your proceeding.
Sure, Your Lordship. Coming to the statement of charges, sir, there's a disturbance with the voice. I'm hearing my own voice. Thank you so much, Your Lordship. Samir, Mono, and Kalu, being accused number 1, 2, and 3, has been charged with criminal conspiracy under Section 120B, counterfeiting currency notes or bank notes under Section 489B, using as genuine, forged, or counterfeiting currency notes or bank notes under Section 489C, waging, attempt to wage war, or abetting waging of war against the Government of India under Section 121, and concealing with intent to facilitate designed to wage war under Section 123, and causing disappearance of evidences of offence or giving false information to screen offender under Section 201 of Indian Penal Code 1860 and Section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 as amended. Your Lordship, with your permission, can I go with the synopsis of facts, Your Lordship?
Yeah, go ahead.
Much pleasure, Lordship. Delhi Police Special Cell, New Delhi, received a secret information from Guddu Singh stating that 2 persons are carrying fake Indian currency notes of rupees 2000 denomination having face value of rupees 10 lakhs. In furtherance of the investigation, police raided a General Coach number 2 of Farakka Express at 10:55 hours on 25th of February 2015. And 2 suspect persons, Samir and Monu, being A1 and A2, were detained, and 2 baggages each containing of 250 notes of denomination rupees 2000 with face value 5 lakhs are recovered from Monu, and as well as 5 lakhs recovered from the bag of Samir, in a total of 10 lakh rupees. And it was also identified that both the bags contains the same logo. And also some of the material items are recovered, like their mobile phones, ID cards, and general railway tickets. And both the accused are identified to be travelling from Malda Town railway station to Delhi by Farakka Express. The seized FICNs were sent to CFSL CBI at New Delhi for expert examination, and the results confirmed the seized fake currency notes are of very high quality. Therefore, Delhi Police Special Cell invoked offences under Section 15 Clause 1 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and also registered FIR under Sections 120B, 489A, 489B of IPC. And through the interrogation, A1 and A2 disclosed that both were used to receive consignments of FICNs from Kalu, who is A3, to transfer it from Malda to Peter, A4 in Pulwama. And also they used to take commission of 10% each. Accordingly, the police raided the house of A4 on 27th and 28th of February 2015, but he was found absconding. Additionally, A3 also revealed that, Additionally, A2 was also revealed that A3 was taking instructions from someone above who is the master planner. Ministry of Home Affairs issued an order on 30th of April 2015 directing the NIA to investigate the case, and subsequently NIA re-registered the case on 11th of May 2015. NIA registered the case under Section 120B, 489B, 489C of IPC and under Section 16, 17, 18 and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 and also Section 6 Clause 2 of Investigation of High Quality Counterfeit Indian Currency Offences Rules 2013. Both the accused Samir and Monu were examined by the police custody of NIA. Hence, Samir admitted the involvement of himself, A3 and Peter with this case. He also added that A3 used to receive instructions from Sohail, who is A5, having contact with Lashkar-e-Taiba from Pakistan, who is planning to carry out bomb blast in Pulwama on an Indian Army convoy by 15th of August 2015. Monu, A2 admitted that A3 received information from Pakistan and Bangladesh with the blast code Dulan ko sajane ka waqt aa gaya hai to blast as soon as the FICN reaches Pulwama to Sohail A5. Here, Dulan ko sajane ka waqt aa hai, the line taking the prosecution took this line as a riddle and tried to find out the hidden meaning is that it means it's time to decorate the bride. Here, the bride word indicates India, and to decorate means the placements of bombs. So, here the conspiracy, the menswear of the accused persons were revealed and focused. NIA sent a team to search the house of Peter on 27th of May 2015, but he was still found absconding. In the process of investigation, the team got information about Peter A4 was that he was admitted in SK Hospital, Rajasthan. Therefore, team reached hospital on 19th of June 2015 and confirmed that he was indeed admitted in the hospital. And after 3 days, that is on 22nd of June 2015, Peter died due to poisoning, that is suicide. Peter's death adversely affected this investigation. Then NA went to the depths of the investigation and obtained call records and SIM cards used by the accused persons. After analyzing the call records, it was identified that A1 and A2 are in contact with each other and also with Peter A4 and A3, whereas A3 is in contact with A1, A2 and A4 also with A5. Peter who is accused number 4 also maintained contact with A2, A1 and A3. During the course of investigation, a team was sent to Malda on 23rd of June 2015 and it successfully established the identity of A3 and Kalu A3 was also arrested. In the process of investigation, 2 bank statements of A3 and 1 account statement of his wife BB were ascertained and copies of his account opening and KYC forms are also obtained. In account opening from A3, it was focused that the mobile number which is used in the KYC forms in the bank statements is identified as the same number with A3 has maintained frequent contacts with A1 and A2 as mentioned in the call detail records. A3, upon being questioned by the NIA, he did not provide any information regarding the whereabouts of Sohail A5, but on investigation further he told that the FICN is received from Sohail A5 on several occasions. He stated that Sohail is the main conspirator who was in constant touch with Lashkar-e-Taiba from Pakistan and Bangladesh. And Sohail A5 is also planning to execute the bomb blast on Indian Army convoy by 15th of August 2015. And A3 even told that A5 crossed border at midnight and went to Bangladesh on 20th of June 2015. On 24th of June 2015, NA got an information that Kalu was seen in Kaliachak village, Malda, with an unknown person on 20th of June 2015 for pointing out locations where they want to set bomb, and he met Sohail there, A5. A3 pointed out the places where he took both A1 and A2 from Malda town railway station and sent them to his house through one youth of nearby village on his motorcycle. He also pointed out his own house where delivery of FIC of denomination rupees 10 lakh took place in the presence of A5. In the later stage of investigation, when A5 house was searched, no incriminating substance or statements were found. And NA team found one public witness named Shauruk Khan who claimed that he had seen Sohail A5 on 20th of June 2015 at about 8:23 am with two persons, who is a Kalu being accused person 3 and also a person in black kurta pajama. The call detail records of mobile number of Samir shows his presence in Malda on 24th and 25th of July 2014, which establishes his journey to Farakka to Malda in July 2014. Again, the CDR of mobile number of Samir shows his presence in Farakka to Malda on 25th and 26th of September 2014, which establishes his second trip to West Bengal in September 2014. Here, a point is magnified that they are trying since a long days ago about this plan. This also tells about the intention about planning or executing some bomb blast. And the CDR analysis of mobile number of Samir shows his presence in some districts of West Bengal on 5th of February 2015. The CDR analysis of mobile number of Monu shows that his mobile was switched off from 3rd February 2015 to till 7th of February 2015, which indicates that he had clearly switched off his mobile phone while on trip to West Bengal. As per the investigation, this deal could not materialize, and Samir and Monu were asked to return back by Kalu as Sohail's close friend Iqbal Khan was arrested by the local police in another case on 5th of February 2015, and they were fearing for more arrests. And also, they have neither mentioned that whether on regarding which case Iqbal Khan was arrested. As per the disclosure of Kalu A3, since the deal could not materialize in the first week of February 2015, he made telephonic contact with A2, duly established by the call recording details of mobile numbers. This time, a deal was struck for procurement of approximately FICNs of 10 lakhs rupees denomination for a cost of about 3.5 lakhs. As per the disclosure of A3, he collected FICN worth 10 lakh from A5 for sending it to Pulwama through A1 and A2, and where it had to be carried out bomb blast on convoy of Indian Army on 15th of August 2015. A3 contacted Peter on mobile phone as reflected in the call detail record analysis to confirm availability of fake Indian currency notes. Accordingly, on the directions of A4, A1 and A2 left for Malda, West Bengal with 10 lakh rupees of fake Indian currency notes cash. They left Agar, Malwa on 21st of February 2015, and after reaching Farakka railway station, they were joined by Kalu A3 in train for onward journey to Malda. After reaching Malda, A1 and A2 were taken to the house of A3 as per the arrangements made by him. They received FICN consignment of 10 lakh rupees from Kalu A3 on the instruction of Sohail A5 in the house of A3 on 23rd of February 2015. Accordingly, after transaction, they left Malda for Pulwama to hand over the 10 lakh rupee FICN consignment to Peter A4 as agreed upon, but they were finally intercepted and arrested at the Old Delhi railway station by Delhi Police Special Cell personnel. Your Lordship, if you are satisfied with the facts of the case, can I move on to the issues raised? Much pleasure, Your Lordship.
No, you're preparing for the prosecution or for the defense?
Your Lordship, we are from the prosecution, Lordships.
So, in your prosecution story, you've also seen that there's been a possession of 5 lakhs each.
Yes, Your Lordship.
And you have also seen that they are in constant touch with each other.
Yes, Your Lordship.
And you have also seen and you have said that there has been, what do you call, a disclosure statement of all the accused.
Yes, Your Lordship.
So this is your case in a nutshell. Yeah, next. Yeah, tell me next.
Okay, Your Lordship, I want to tell you one thing that I will be dealing with two issues, and the rest of the issues will be dealt by my co-counsel. Your Lordship, the first issue is whether detention of Samir and Monu by police without warrant is valid, and whether there is existence of common intention between accused is my second issue. Your Lordship, with your permission, can I go with the arguments of first issue, Your Lordship? Much pleasure, Your Lordship.
So, if I may interject, time is over for speaker number 1, as I have also been stating in the chat box. If, with the permission of the honorable judges, if
In between, I took 5 minutes. No, I was telling them.
no, I have deducted. No. So I deducted that time.
I know you quite well. You won't have deducted it.
No, I have. Sir.
You're a strict master. And you just complete your first charge in 2 minutes.
Much pleasure, Your Lordship. I will be completing within 2 minutes. Your Lordship, the first issue is whether detention of Samir and Monu by police without warrant is valid. According to Section 41, Clause 1 of CRPC provides that any police officer may, without an order from magistrate and without a warrant, arrest any person who has been concerned in any cognizable offence or against whom a reasonable complaint has been made or credible information has been received or a reasonable suspicion exists, or of his having been so concerned, or as per section 46 of CRPC provides that the method and manner of arrest. Under this section, no formality is necessary while arresting a person. As per section 49 of CRPC, the police is not permitted to use more restraint than is necessary to prevent the escape of the person. Your Lordship, here the detention of Samir and Monu without warrant is justified, since the police officer acted in the ambit of powers conferred to him under section 41 clause 1 of CRPC. When there is a danger of a serious crime being happened under such circumstances, there will be no time to approach a magistrate and obtain a warrant of arrest. Here Samir and Monu were arrested on seizing the FICNs, which provides a reasonable ground to suspect the accused, and this making the arrest valid because it is done with the goodwill to avoid something which might happen if they are left free. Your Lordship, if you are satisfied with the first issue, I'll move on to the second one with your permission.
Thank you.
Much pleasure, Your Lordship. Whether the second issue is whether there is existence of common intention between the accused persons. Section 34 of Indian Penal Code states that when a criminal act is done by several persons in furtherance of the common intention of all, each of such persons is liable for that act in the same manner as if it were done by him alone. It invokes vicarious liability. It requires a pre-arranged plan and presupposes prior consent. Therefore, it requires prior meeting of minds. According to Section 35 of IPC, whenever an act which is criminal only by reason of it being done with criminal knowledge or intent is done by several persons, each such person who joins in the act with such knowledge is liable for the act as if it were done by him alone with that knowledge. The relevant case law with this dealing with this section is in Shyamal Ghosh versus State of West Bengal. It was said that in order to constitute an offence under common intention, there must be a pre-oriented plan, and acting in pursuance to the plan is essential. Accordingly, all the accused have common intention and acted accordingly in pursuance of a pre-oriented plan of committing waging of war against a nation. Both A1 and A2, though they haven't shared the complete intention to wage war, but they had reasonable knowledge for the criminal acts being done, still chose to join in the act. Hence, they are liable for the act in the same manner as that of other accused persons. Your Lordship, if you are satisfied, now my co-counsel will be dealing with the rest of the issues.
Thank you, Will.
Much pleasure, Your Lordship.
Your Lordship, may I proceed with the further issue, Your Lordship? Much pleasure, Your Lordship. Whether all the accused are guilty of criminal conspiracy under Section 120B of Indian Penal Code. Section 120A of Indian Penal Code defines criminal conspiracy as when two or more persons agree to do or cause to be done an illegal act or a legal act by illegal means. Such agreement can be designated as a criminal conspiracy. The agreement may be either express or implied. The actus reus in criminal conspiracy is agreement to execute an illegal conduct, and it is also necessary to show a consensus ad idem between the members of the party. But it is also not necessary that each of the conspirators have been in communication with each other, and all the details of the conspiracy must be known to everyone. In Rajiv Kumar versus State of Uttar Pradesh, it was held that the meeting of minds or of two or more persons of doing or causing to be done an illegal act by illegal means is sine qua non of criminal conspiracy. Section 10 of Indian Evidence Act states that anything said, done, or written by one of the members of the conspiracy shall be evidence against the other members, although they are done in their absence, provided that there is the existence of reasonable ground to believe that the persons entered into conspiracy is prima facie. The said thing must have been in reference to the common intention. In the concerned case, during the process of investigation, the accused A1 and A2 disclosed their involvement in transferring of the FICNs, and the telephonic evidences collected by the NIA clearly proves that all the accused are being a part of the conspiracy. If the accused goes on further with doing such act even after having knowledge about it, it would mean that they are also being part of the conspiracy. Cooperation of such an offense shows the intention of them that they are also intending to commit crime. Hence, it's enough to contend that the accused has intention. It is humbly submitted before this honorable court that all the accused are guilty of the criminal conspiracy, since they have entered into an agreement to do an illegal act, that is procurement and transportation of the FICNs, which are to be used for the accomplishment of the terror attack, that is a bomb blast on Indian Army convoy on August 15, 2015. May I proceed with the further issue, Your Lordship? Much pleasure, Your Lordship. Whether transportation of FICNs by the accused will amount to offence under Section 489B and 489C of EPC. Section 489B of Indian Penal Code provides that whoever sells or buys the counterfeit notes and use it as a genuine are punishable under this section for life imprisonment or for a term of 10 years or with fine. Section 489C provides that whoever in possession of any forged or counterfeit notes shall be held liable and punishable for a term of 7 years or with fine or with both. To constitute the above said offences, there must exist a proof that the currency notes were forged or counterfeit and were received from some other person. Accused must also have a knowledge, and they should have the intent to use the forged notes as genuine. Section 45 of the Indian Evidence Act states that when court has to form an opinion upon a point of science, the opinions of the person specifically skilled in such areas of science are to be considered. That is, expert's opinion must be taken. Here, in the concerned case, when the police recovered FICNs from the accused A1 and A2, they sent the FICNs for the expert's opinion to CFSL. The CFSL and the CBI opines that the trafficking of the FICNs are of high quality, and both the accused must be held liable for trafficking the said FICNs. When it is humbly submitted before this honorable court that both the accused were involved with possession and trafficking of forged or counterfeit notes. Thus, we humbly submit that the accused are guilty of the offences under Section 489B and 489C of Indian Penal Code. If you are satisfied with my arguments, may I proceed with the further issue, Your Lordship? Whether the accused are guilty of the offence of waging of war of the nation under Section 121 and 121A of Indian Penal Code. Section 121 of Indian Penal Code states that whoever wages war against the government of India or attempts to wage such war or abets the waging of such war shall be punished with death or imprisonment for life, and shall also be liable to fine. Here, the term war not only means a fight between two external countries, it also means joining any insurrection against the government of India. Here, the terror attack can also be considered under the term war under this section. Section 121A provides punishment in respect of a conspiracy to commit offences under Section 121 of Indian Penal Code. In State NCT of Delhi versus Navjot Sandhu at the rate Afsan Guru, the court held that the criminal act done by the deceased terrorist in order to capture the parliament Parliament House was to impinge the sovereign authority, even if the conspired purpose or objective falls short of accomplishment, it will not detract from the offence of wage war. Thus, attempt to wage war and the conspiracy to wage war or abetting to wage war shall be held liable under Section 121A of Indian Penal Code. In the concerned case, Samir and Monu, during the course of investigation by NIA, admitted their involvement in the case and disclosed the involvement of other accused Kalu, who used to take instructions from Sohail, who was planning to carry out a bomb blast on Indian Army convoy. He further informed that Sohail was in constant touch with Lashkar-e-Taiba. And Monu also disclosed the blast code "Dulam ko sajane ka waqt aa gaya hai," which means to blast as the FICNs reaches Pulwama, since all the accused are closely associated with each other and are actively involved in procurement, transportation, and distribution of the FICNs across the country. Such actions clearly amount to terrorist conspiracy with a gang causing damage to the stability of India. Thus, the accused shall be held liable. If you are satisfied with my arguments, may I proceed with further issue, my lordship?
I'm not convinced by your arguments on waging war against government of India. You see, waging war against government of India is something more. It's not the terrorist activity, because every terrorist activity will become a waging war against government of India. It's a very serious offense, which is concerning the sovereignty of the country. So how do you bring this act of counterfeiting with the waging of war?
Much obliged, your lordship. Here, the bomb blast damages the. Here we can consider under 2 points, your lordship. The first one is procurement and transportation of the FICNs. It means it damages the economic and financial stability of the nation. And here the second one is carrying out a bomb blast on the Indian Army convoy directly impinges the sovereign authority of the nation. So under these two circumstances, we can consider the accused are held liable for waging war. May I proceed with the further issue, your lordship? Much a pleasure, your lordship. Whether the concealment with intent to facilitate designed to wage war comes as an attempt to proceed with the offences. Section 123 of Indian Penal Code states that whoever by illegal means conceals the existence to design the wage war against the government of India in order to facilitate the waging of war shall be punishable with life imprisonment or may extend out to 10 years or shall be liable to fine. The accused Samir and Monu are very much aware of the commission of the waging war. Still, they omitted the duty or the obligation to give notice to any public servant. This amounts to the intentional concealment of the facts known to them to facilitate the design to wage war. Samir and Monu disclosed that they are aware of the facts of the terror attack on Indian Army convoy. In Shaukat Hussain Guru versus State NCT of Delhi, the Honorable Court dealt with the question whether the offences under Section 123, of which accused was not charged, is a minor offence falling under charges result in prejudice to him. Similarly, Samir and Monu, being charged with the major offences such as criminal conspiracy and waging war, does not in any way defend them from being charged under Section 123 of IPC. May I proceed with the further issue, your lordship? Whether the statements disclosed and the information revealed by the accused during the investigation can be held as evidence to make them liable. Section 27 of the Indian Evidence Act provides that when any fact is deposited to as discovery in consequence of information received from a person accused of any offence in the custody of a police officer, so much of such information, whether it amounts to confession or not, as relates distinctly to the fact thereby discovered, may be proved. If the statement made by the accused to a police officer is capable of leading to discovery of a fact, then such statement can be considered as an evidence. The basic idea implanted in Section 27 of the Indian Evidence Act is the doctrine of confirmation by successive events. In one of the cases by the Honorable Supreme Court, it was clearly held that the ban imposed on Section 25 and Section 26 of Indian Evidence Act can be lifted if the statement is clearly related to the discovery of facts. Extrajudicial confessions are those voluntary confessions by the guilt which supports in the chain of circumstances. Here in the concerned case, the information stated by Samir, Monu, and Kalu is accompanied with the circumstantial and subsidiary evidences like call records, phone data, bank statements. Henceforth, those statements get confessional and evidentiary value, making them liable to the offences charged. Here in the concerned case, the accused A1 and A2 statements helped to reveal the facts of the further accused involvement, and that helped the team NIA to chase the case. Since the statements of the accused led to the discovery of the facts of them being involved in a terrorist activities, such statements can be considered for the purpose of evidence and for furtherance of investigation. This was held in the case of State of Maharashtra versus Damu Gopinath Shinde. If you are satisfied with my argument, may I proceed with the further issue, Your Lordship? Whether destroying the evidences of Kalu distracted the investigation. Section 201 of Indian Penal Code deals with the two aspects. One is causing disappearance of the evidence, and the second is giving false information about the offense. Upon the investigation, Kalu, Samir, and Monu disclosed about the involvement of the Sohail, who was the mastermind behind all the offenses planned and committed. But when the investigating agency searched the house or the residence of the Sohail, they could not find any incriminating evidence because all other evidences with sufficient knowledge and about the offenses committed, Kalu, along with the indirect support of Samir and Monu, destroyed them relating to planning and operation of such offences, which attracted another offence under Section 201 of IPC. May I proceed with the further issue, Your Lordship? Whether the accused were guilty of offence under Sections 16, 17, 18, and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act as charged. Based on the investigation, it can be said that each one of the accused are in contact with one another, and they also involved in criminal conspiracy with motive to cause terror attack on Indian Army convoy during custodial examination. Kalu clearly confirmed that he received FICNs from Sohail on several occasions in the past for further sale and transactions, and he added that the Sohail was the main conspirator who was in constant touch with Lashkar-e-Taiba from Bangladesh and Pakistan. This proves that each of the acts done by the accused is in pursuance of terror motive. Thus, they shall be made liable under Section 16 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. I would like, my Lordship, with your permission, I would like to continue for 2 more minutes.
Yeah. In actual court, I mean, the court says sit down, we say just 2 minutes. Sit down, just 2 minutes. And we take half an hour. I don't think she's going to allow you for more than 2 minutes.
Much pleasure, Your Lordship. Hence, under Section...
Pleasure is hers. Pleasure is hers, not mine.
No, sir, if you allow, you can probably give her 2 more minutes of time. But we're just in a time crunch, so that is why we cannot allow more than that.
It's an interesting subject. I just did this matter in High Court, so therefore it's very interesting. Carry on, bache. Carry on.
2 more minutes, sir? Should I? 2 more.
Hence, under Section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the whole gang shall be held liable for terrorist attack and for raising for terrorist attacks and for being a member of the organization as well. Preventing terrorist attack is one of the most important things for the welfare of the nation. At the same time, preventing the youth to fall into the traps of the enemy nation is also a duty and obligation of each and every individual, as youth are the future assets of the nation. Your Lordship, if you are satisfied with my arguments, may I proceed with the prayer? Thank you, Your Lordship. Wherefore, in the light of the issues raised, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, may this honorable court could be pleased to declare the respondents guilty and liable to be charged under Section 120B, 489B, 489C, 121, 123, and 201 of the Indian Penal Code, and under Section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Pass an appropriate order to declare illegal and ban the terrorist gang of the respondents. Direct the respondents to pay the fines as imposed by the court. Deny any appeal for bail of the respondents. All of which is most humbly and respectfully submitted to this honorable court by the petitioner's counsel, Your Lordship.
So extra time over, yes.
Thank you, Your Lordship.
The next team may start with close permission.
If it please your Honorable Court, may the council refer to the Lordship as Lordship and the bench collectively as Lordship.
Sir is better anyhow.
Much obliged, Your Lordship.
Sir,
Myself,
sir.
okay, sir. I'm counsel 1 representing the accused, and I'll be dealing with 3 issues. That is whether the persons are guilty under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA, section 489B and 489C of IPC, and section 123 and 121 of IPC. And my co-counsel will be dealing with the rest of the 2 issues. If it please you, Honorable Sir, may the council move to the statement of facts. Much obliged, sir. Based on a secret information received to the special cell of Delhi Police, they raided the general coach of Farakka Express in New Delhi Old Railway Station, and they arrested 2 persons who were found to be in possession of 5 lakh each of fake currency notes. When they were taken into custody and the notes were sent for checking its quality, and on interrogation, it was revealed that they received the accused 1 and 2 received this high quality FICN from accused 3, and they were supposed to transport the same to accused 4 in Pulwama. And it was also revealed that this money was going to be used for conducting a bomb blast in the Indian Army convoy on 15th of August 2013. And they also said that there was a head person who was accused 5 who was giving instructions to accused 3. Now, the report from the CFSL of CBI revealed that the notes were of high quality FICN, and they were charged under section 489B and 489C, 121 and 123, 201 of IPC, and 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA. If your Honorable Sir is satisfied, may the council move to the statement issues. Issue 1. Much obliged to your lordship. Issue 1 is whether the accused persons are guilty under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA. Now, the ingredients of section 16 is that the person must commit a terrorist act. The essential ingredient of section 17 is that the person must raise, provide, or collect funds. And this fund has to be used by a terrorist organization in order to commit a terrorist act. And this person must know that this fund is going to be used for the commission of a terrorist act. To constitute an offense under section 17, section 18, the following ingredients has to be satisfied. That is, the person must conspire or attempt to commit or advocate, abet, advise, or incite the commission of a terrorist act, and the person knowingly has to facilitate the commission of the terrorist act. Now, the essential ingredient of section 20 is that the person must be a member of a terrorist organization or a gang, terrorist gang. Now, section 2K of the UAPA defines what a terrorist act is, and according to it, what is contained in section 15 constitutes a terrorist act. Now, under section 15, clause 3A, any damage to the monetary stability of India by way of the production or smuggling or circulation of high quality FICN, and also according to clause 4 of section 15, any damage or destruction caused to the property of India which is used for the defense will constitute an offense of terrorism, or it will constitute the offense of terrorism. Okay. Then in Radul Hussain Khan versus State of Assam, the court has held that Article 21 of the Constitution guarantees life with dignity. Undoubtedly, national security is of utmost importance. Thus, both national interest and individual dignity are the core values of the Constitution. Thus, merely assumptions or presumptions without sufficient material is not enough to charge a person under the sections provided in the UAPA. Now, here, accused 1 and accused 2 is said to be arrested with the possession of high quality FICN note, but the purpose for which is said to be a bomb blast, but this purpose is not established with valid evidence. And also, the quality of the notes, FICN notes, as provided by CFSL, CBI, they say that these are high quality FICN, but they have not provided any kind of explanation to the same. Thus, this cannot be relied upon. If sir is satisfied, may the council move to the next issue.
No, what are you trying to say that because you're not challenging the CFSL report? Okay, am I clear? You're not challenging the CFSL report. You're saying that CFSL report has come with the conclusion of this is the contrary.
I'm saying that it came with no explanation. I'm not challenging it. That I'm saying that
with no explanation of what? CFSL report does not explain anything. CFSL report is section 45 of the Evidence Act, that it is subject to further cross-examination, but it is a prima facie showing that there are a counterfeit. As far as counterfeiting is concerned, you are not disputing them.
Because they provided three reports. The first report says that it is high quality notes, and the second one says it's FICN, and thirdly they're saying it's high quality FICN. So there's kind of a dispute with that.
Carry on, carry on.
Much obliged, sir. Moving on to the second issue. Second issue is whether the accused is guilty under Section 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code. Now, in Panag Lal Gupta versus State of Sikkim, the court has held that the essential ingredient of Section 489B is that the person must sell, buy, receive, or he has to traffic or use as genuine any counterfeited currency note, and this must be done with the knowledge, or he must have reason to believe that these were counterfeited notes. Now, the essential ingredient of Section 489C is that the person must be in possession of counterfeited notes, and he must have the knowledge that these are counterfeited notes, and also he must have the intention to use the same. Here, accused 1 and accused 2 did not have the knowledge that they were carrying counterfeited currency notes. According to Exhibit 7 provided in page 53 and page 54, the defense witness statement 1 and 2, it's provided that they were not aware that these were high quality FICN note. They were working for the organization of accused 3, and as part of working there, they were assigned with the job of carrying this bag from one place to another, and they had no knowledge that they were carrying FICN notes. FICN notes, and in a number of cases, listing a few: Gafoor versus State of Kerala, Mammootty versus State of Karnataka, K. Hashim versus State of Tamil Nadu, Monte versus P. Vijaya, Kuttanadar Wilson versus State. In all these cases, different courts have held that knowledge is an essential element to constitute an offence under Section 489B as well as Section 489C. Thus, here the accused 1 and 2, they lacked knowledge about that they were carrying counterfeited currency notes. Now, in Umar Shankar versus State of Chhattisgarh, the court held that. Sir, you have.
Oh, yeah. No, that's good. Carry on.
Umar Shankar versus State of Chhattisgarh, the court held that sections 489A to 489E deals with economic offences, and the legislator intended to protect the economy, and also intention to use this notes as genuine is also essential to constitute an offence under section 489C. Now, they were carrying. Now, yours, sir, if you please refer to page 35 to 37, annexure G, and page 39 to 41, annexure I, you can see the notes, the serial number of notes that the accused 1 and 2 were carrying. If you have a check, you can find that both of them are carrying notes having same serial number. So these persons, accused 1, 2, and 3, they are alleged to have committed a criminal conspiracy to conduct a bomb blast in the Indian Army convoy. Such persons will never make such a grave mistake of printing notes with same serial number, traveling in the same train to the same destination. Thus, this brings about some kind of discrepancies. Now, if
is there a prosecution case that the printer which is being used, that has also been apprehended, which was counterfeiting the note?
No, yeah, sir. Nothing of that was mentioned by the prosecution. Hello, sir. Am I audible? Sir, am I audible? Ma'am, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible.
Sir, am I audible now, sir?
Sir, you are
mute. Sir, you are mute. Sir.
I said, what did you do? You took me out of the frame, huh?
I don't know.
So I'm going to hold you guilty. Anyhow, carry on.
Okay. So if you're satisfied, may the council move to the third issue. Much obliged, Your Lordship. The third issue is whether the person are guilty under Section 121 and 123 of the Indian Penal Code. Now, the essential ingredient of Section 121 is that the person must wage war, attempt or abet waging of war, and this must be against the government. Now, Section 123 says that the person must, by an act or an illegal omission, has to conceal the existence of a design to wage war against the government and thereby facilitate waging war against the government. Now, in the case, State State versus Mehrusina, the court has held that the expression waging war should not be stretched too far to hold all acts of disrupting public order and peace, irrespective of their magnitude, as waging war against the government. A balanced and a realistic approach has to be called for constituting the expression waging war. Now, here, accused 1, 2, and 3 are charged with attempt to wage war based on the confession of these accused, because the story of bomb blast came into the knowledge only based on their confessions. Here, confession according to section 25 of the Indian Evidence Act is no evidence, because the confession is made during interrogation and is made to the police officer. A confession made before a police officer is no evidence. And also, according to Article 20, Clause 3 of the Indian Constitution, a person has the right to be protected against self-incrimination. He cannot be asked to give evidence against himself. In the case State of Bombay versus Kathikalu, the court has held the 4 constitutional elements to make a person get the benefit under Article 20, Clause 3. That is, he must be an accused person, he has to be compelled, and he must be a witness, and he must be a witness against himself. So in this case, the confession is given by accused 1, 2, and 3, and these make themselves a witness against themselves. Thus, these are not admissible according to Article 20, Clause 3. Then what is alleged is that they have planned a bomb blast, of which there is no other valid evidence. Thus, waging war against and concealment of the design is not proved. And with that, the council submits that the accused 1, 2, and 3 are not guilty under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA, and section 489B, 489C, 121, 123 of the Indian Penal Code. If your sirs convinced, the council would like to conclude, and council 2 will deal with the other 2 issues. Thank you. Much obliged, Your Lordship.
Thank you.
May the counsel for the defense seek permission to begin with the issue number 4. Much obliged, Your Lordship. Issue number 4. Whether the accused person is guilty under section 120B. It is humbly contended that Samir...
I'm sorry, I'm interjecting in between. Speaker number 1 took 2 minutes less than her designated time. So it can either be utilized by speaker number 2 or can be used for rebuttal. The teams may decide within themselves.
Thank you, ma'am. My Lordship, may I continue? It is humbly contended that Samir, Monu, and Kallumama is not guilty of committing the offence of criminal conspiracy under section 120B of Indian Penal Code 1860, and it is to be noted that the essential elements of section 120B are as follows. There must be 2 or more persons, and they must agree to do any illegal act or an act that is not illegal by illegal means, and such an agreement is designated to a criminal conspiracy. Some acts besides the agreement has to be done by one or more parties in pursuance of such an agreement. The basic ingredients of the offence of criminal conspiracy are basically an agreement, and it should be between 2 or more persons, and the agreement must relate to doing or causing to be done either an illegal act or by an act which is not illegal in itself but is done by illegal means. It is therefore the plain that meeting of minds of 2 or more persons for doing or causing to be done an illegal act or an act by illegal means is sine qua non of criminal conspiracy. And it is also mentioned in a case Yogesh versus State of Maharashtra. And conspiracy is always hatched in secrecy, and it is impossible to adduce direct evidence of the common intention of the conspirators. Therefore, the meeting of the minds of the conspirators can be inferred from the circumstances proved by the prosecution if such inference is possible. For every offence under section 120B, the prosecution need not necessarily prove the perpetrators expressly agreed to do and or cause to be done the illegal act. The agreement may be proved by necessary implication, and it is also stated in a case Muhammad Hussain Mainar versus State of Maharashtra. And the gist of the offence of conspiracy has been brought out successfully in the following words. The gist of the offence of conspiracy then lies not in doing the act or effecting the purpose of which the conspiracy is formed, nor in attempting to do them, nor in insisting others to do them, but in forming of the scheme or agreement between the parties. And the agreement is essential, and mere knowledge or even the discussion of the plain is not per se enough. And it is also mentioned in a case Khega Singh versus State. And mostly conspiracy are proved by circumstantial evidences, as conspiracy is seldom an open affair. Usually, both the existence of the conspiracy and its objects have to be inferred from circumstances and conduct of the accused. The well-known rule governing the circumstantial evidence is that each and every incriminating circumstance must be established by reliable evidence, and circumstance so proved must form a chain of events from which the only reliable conclusion about the guilt of the accused can be safely drawn, and no other hypothesis against the guilt is possible. And to prove criminal conspiracy, the prosecution must establish that there was meeting of minds between the persons and to do an unlawful act. And it is very difficult to get direct evidence to prove criminal conspiracy, and it can be proved only by circumstantial evidence. However, it is not sufficient to convict a person under this section merely to prove that he had been associating with the other accused at certain place on his arrest and endured and himself from being accused of something connected with the conspiracy. And the prosecution cannot complete what is necessary to show that he was a person who concerned with the others by proving that he was friendly with the other accused and was anxious to escape the observation, or even was doing his best to conceal the whereabouts. And the confession made by the accused number 1 and 2 is unreliable as it is of low evidentiary value and lacks corroboration. The Apex Code has held that confession of the co-accused cannot be used against the accused unless the court is morally satisfied on other evidences that the accused is guilty. And it is also stated in a case Badal Sheikh versus State. And a conviction made based on a confession by a co-accused in the absence of corroboration from other independent evidence would be considered very unsafe to do. It is well settled principle that where the case is mainly based on circumstantial evidence, the court must satisfy itself that various circumstances in the chain of evidence should be established clearly, and that the completed chain must be such as to the rule out a reasonable likelihood of innocence of the accused. And when even a link breaks away, the chain of circumstance gets snapped, and other circumstance cannot in any manner establish the guilt of the accused beyond all reasonable doubt. And when attempting to convict on circumstantial evidence alone, the court must firmly satisfied with the following 3 things. The circumstance from which the inference of the guilt is to be drawn out must have been fully established by unimpeachable evidence beyond a shadow of doubt. And secondly, the circumstances are of dermative tendency. And thirdly, the circumstances taken collectively are incapable of explanation on any reasonable hypothesis except that of the guilt sought to be proved against him. And thus circumstantial evidence must be fully consistent with the hypothesis of the guilt of the accused, otherwise the accused cannot be convicted. And the prosecution must inevitably and exclusively point to the guilt of the accused, and there should be no missing link. And any missing link may be fatal to the prosecution case. And it is also stated in a case Lakshman Naik versus State of Orissa. And to convict a person based on circumstantial evidence, the evidence must be incompatible with any other hypothesis other than the guilt of the accused. If the Lordship is satisfied with the arguments in issue number 4, then the Council seeks permission to move on to the next issue.
Go ahead.
Issue number 5, whether the accused person is guilty under section 201, it is humbly contended that Kallumama is not guilty of committing the offence of causing disappearance of evidence of the offence under section 201 of the Indian Penal Code. And it is to be noted that the essential elements of section 201 are as follows: that is, the person must know or have reason to believe the commission of an offence, and the person must cause the disappearance of any evidence of that offence or provide any information which he knows or believes to be false, and this must be done to screen the offender from a legal punishment. So it is plain that the intent to screen the offender committing an offence must be the primary and sole aim of the accused, and it hardly needs any emphasis that to bring home an offence under section 201 of IPC, a mere suspicion is not sufficient. There must be on a record of cogent evidence to prove that the accused knew or had an information sufficient to lead him to believe that the offence had been committed, and the accused has caused the evidence to disappear to screen the offender, known or unknown. So to establish the charge under 201, the prosecution must first prove that an offence had been committed, not merely on a suspicion, it might have been committed, and that's and that the accused knowing or having a reason to believe that such an offence had been committed and with the intent to screen the offender from a legal punishment and had caused the evidence thereof to disappear. So the proof of the commission of an offence is essential requisite for bringing home the offence under section 201 of IPC. And when a specific finding is recorded by the trial court that there is no evidence for convicting the accused under section 201 of IPC, it ought not have convicted her for the same or more on assumptions or presumptions. This is also stated in a case Raghav from Tripadi versus State of UP. And when the accused was not held guilty for an act of removing the body from and hanging it on a tree, because even this act was not sufficient to cause evidence of murder to disappear. Whereas a noteworthy point here in this case, as prosecution was able to prove the intention of the accused that to screen the offender from the punishment, but this only element was proved based on the facts of the case. The furtherance to the essential ingredient of intention, the prosecution should be able to prove the knowledge on behalf of the accused that the offence had been already occurred. And having regard to the language used, the mere suspicion would not be sufficient, and there must be available on record cogent evidence that the accused has caused the evidence to disappear in order to screen another or any unknown. The foremost necessity being the accused must have the knowledge or have the reason to believe that such an offence have been committed. And the term used in this section, knowing or having a reason to believe, conclusively negates the view that its provisions are applicable in the cases in which the offence have not been committed. Similarly, in respect of the persons charged with an offence under section 201 of IPC, it must be proved that such persons or persons have actively participated in the matter of disappearance of the evidence and not merely suffered the same to happen. In the scheme and according to section 201 of the Indian Penal Code, the most important ingredient is that it must be actually proved and the principal offence is committed and the evidence of which the accused is charged with causing the disappearance, and in the absence thereof the criminal liability under this section is not attracted and the mere suspicion is not sufficient. There must be on record the cogent evidence to prove that the accused knew or had sufficient information to believe that the offence had been committed and the accused has caused the evidence to disappear in order to screen the offender. The destroying of evidence by accused number 3 is just a prosecution story with no reliable and valid evidence on the same. If the Lordship is satisfied with the arguments of issue number 5, the counsel for the defence can move on to the prayer. Much obliged, Your Lordship. Prayer. Where therefore, in the light of the issues raised and arguments advanced and authorities cited, may this honourable court be pleased to acquit Samir, Monu, Kallimama for committing the offences of using genuine, forged or counterfeit notes or bank notes, the possession of the same under section 489B and 489C, and waging or attempting to wage war or abetting to wage war against the government of India under section 121, and concealing with the intent to facilitate design to wage war under section 123, criminal conspiracy under section 120B, and disappearance of the evidence of the offence under 201 of the Indian Penal Code 1860, and the offences of the Terrorist Act under section 16, and punishment for raising fund for the Terrorist Act under section 17, and punishment for criminal conspiracy under section 18, and punishment for being a member of the terrorist gang or organization under section 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. My Lordship, can I take 1 more minute to... much obliged, Your Lordship. And or pass any order it may deem fit in the interest of justice, equity and good conscience, all of which is most humbly and respectfully submitted. If Your Lordship is satisfied with the arguments in issue number 4 and 5, then the Council would like to conclude the arguments on behalf of the accused. Much obliged, Your Lordship.
Your Lordship, now can the prosecution move on to the rebuttal? With your permission, Your Lordship.
Yeah, go ahead.
Much pleasure, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, in the page number 25 of the defense memorial, is said that accused number 1 and 2 are carrying high quality FICNs with the same serial number. This is a matter of discrepancy. Since both the accused were traveling in the same time to the same destination, will never carry notes with the same serial number, as allegedly they were planning a conspiracy to conduct a bomb blast at the Indian Army convoy and would make such a big mistake of printing notes with the same serial number. Lordship, here no government.
You don't have any direct evidence. Do you have any direct evidence of a bomb blast that they are going with this intention to perform this terrorist activity?
Of course, Your Lordship, their call detail records and the presence of public witness on the when the accused persons A3 and A5 and also an unknown person crossed the border at the West Bengal clearly states that they have the intention of planning or executing a bomb blast, and they're also facilitating waging of war and other issues, Your Lordship. Here, no government mint will print the currency notes with the same currency number. So, how the prosecution wants to question the defense? How can they deny this such an important point? And also, Your Lordship, they have mentioned that under Section 17 of Terrorist Act, there must be funds. Clearly, that was mentioned that they are taking funds from the Pakistan and other countries. Being Pakistan a enemy country, it's trying to trap the young generations of our country to attack against our own nation, which is like the facilitating of waging war. So this clearly states that they are of guilty mind. And also, Your Lordship, they have mentioned that according to Section 20 of Terrorist Act, there should be a terrorist gang. Your Lordship, no authority will certify that they are of terrorist gang. Only their actions and their criminal background, that's all speaks about their a terrorist gang. So here they are committing a criminal conspiracy because there are 2 or more persons, and also they are doing illegal acts by transferring the fake Indian currency notes. And also when the defense counsel tries to state that it's a part of donations or like upliftment of weaker sections, they must do an illegal act with legal means only, but not a but not in an illegal way. So here it is clearly states that they are a terrorist gang and they are committing these offences. And also, Your Lordship, they are telling about the suspicion. There is no suspicion, Your Lordship, because there is a public witness called Shaurak Khan. He clearly states that at a particular time, also mentioned that at 8:23 a.m. they are present with another unknown person with black kurta pajama along with dress code. The public witness were clearly stating, and also the call detail records are also clearly stating about this. And also, this is not the first attempt. In the previous times also they've did a lot of attempts, but it was failed, and now it was proven unfortunate to them. So, Your Lordship, the prosecution was very curious for the defense counsel to answer the doubts raised for us. And also, Your Lordship, how can they are very unaware when even they are carrying in their own bags the fake currency notes? They have travelled one day, and being not aware is completely baseless. So these are the doubts raised for the prosecution, Your Lordship. Now the prosecution arguments will be rested. If you are satisfied, Your Lordship.
With your permission, Lordship, may the defense counsel move to the rebuttals. Much obliged, Your Lordship. Okay. First of all, with the same serial numbers as
Team 519 has 1 extra minute, which was saved.
We'll take it for rebuttals.
Yes. So that will be a total of 6 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, as the learned counsel for the prosecution stated, it was same serial number. No government is going to print the same, but nobody is going to print the same, and they were not carrying the same. After it came into the custody, there has some discrepancy or something has happened, due to which it has came out that both are carrying the same serial numbers. Kallu, the accused 3, has an organization which is working for protecting the minority rights, and some of which can go against some of the government policies. So this could be something linking them to, we can say that this is something like trapping them or something. The accused persons are being trapped or something. So the notes are being changed. And you mentioned about some witness, some Shahrukh or some witness. As per this 6 and 7, there is no witness of prosecution or the defense named Saw. So I don't know
Are you
which
trying?
statement
No,
you're
no.
talking.
Wait, just tell me one thing. Are you trying to say that you were not aware that the notes which you were carrying were forfeited, counterfeit notes? Is this your
Yes.
case?
Yes, sir. Because they were working for the organization, they got an assignment. They were supposed to carry a bag from one place to another, and they received some money because they need to earn, they need to look after a family. So they got a little amount as commission. So they were doing their part. It's none of their business to look into what is in the bags. They're just doing their job. Now, on page 18 of the prosecution memorial, it is said that there is some common intention is there. They have a pre-oriented plan, knowledge. None of this is proved with a valid evidence. All this is said on the basis of some confessions which are not admissible according to section 25 and article 20 clause 3 of the constitution. And in page 17 they have provided that there is an agreement between this accused. No such agreement is mentioned nowhere in any of the statements, nor the statements of the investigating officers also don't reveal such an agreement. This is something again not supported by any kind of evidence. Then on page 18 they have talked about telephonic conversations, and they were continuously in contact and things. They will definitely be continuously in contact because they are part of an organization. They are working for the upliftment of the minority community. They are trying to protect their rights. Definitely they will be in constant contact, and I don't think that solely on basis of telephonic conversations and things a person can be said to have committed a criminal conspiracy. Now, and also to prove criminal conspiracy, it can only be proved based on circumstantial evidence, and as there won't be any direct evidence available. So, in the case state and NCT of Delhi versus Navjot Singh, the court has held that for a person to be convicted solely on the basis of circumstantial evidence, the circumstantial evidence has to form a continuous chain of events pointing only leading to the conclusion that the person is guilty, and not to any of the pointing to the innocence of the accused. Here, the prosecution has failed to show that the circumstantial evidence forms a continuous chain pointing towards the guilt of the accused, and therefore conspiracy is not established. Now, coming to page 19, section 120A is mentioned, even though it is not charged, but still it talks about commission. That is, they are conspiring, any person who conspire to wage war. But here the same is not established. Conspiracy is, as I said just before, now it is not established. They were working part of the organization, and the money, they had no knowledge that it was counterfeited currency note. Now, in page 20, they have mentioned about the blast code, and all these blast code comes from the confession, which is again not admissible according to section 25 of the Indian Evidence Act and according to article 20 clause 3. The learned counsel for the prosecution has mentioned about section 27 of the Indian Evidence Act. According to section 27, a part of the confession can be admissible only if it leads to the discovery of new facts which is related to the fact and issue. It has to lead to something that has to be connected with the issue, which the fact is which is an issue only, and that portion will only be admissible. Here there is no such thing from which the confession, no such fact is being arrived, or we does not reach to some kind of conclusion from these confessions. You saying that based on the confession there is a bomb blast, but no other supporting evidence or no corroboration, nothing is done. Thus, confession is not admissible according to section 27 of the Indian Evidence Act. Now, in page 22 onwards, UAPA has been charged. Again, it is said that like a confession can be admissible if the circumstantial evidence supports the same. But here also, again, the circumstantial evidence has to form a continuous chain, which is not formed, or the prosecution has failed to prove that it forms a continuous chain. Then they have talked about section 201, which is merely a prosecution story, because there's just a single sentence that no incriminating evidence could be found because everything was destroyed by accused 3. There is no supporting evidence, no statements of witnesses, nothing is there provided. So it is merely a prosecution story stating that the person has destroyed the evidence. Now coming to UAPA, criminal conspiracy of terror attack is mentioned. Here again, the criminal conspiracy is not established. Then funding. This next section is about raising funds. And here again, they would have raised fund, but that is for a genuine purpose and not for doing this terrorist act and things. It is like protecting the Minority Act is nowhere a terrorist act. Thus, funding, they have done that because they have 10 rupees with them. So it can be for the purpose of working for the minorities. Then preparatory act. It is said that FICN was there and a preparation was there. But for a conspiracy, even though the actual act is not done, there has to be some kind of preparatory act. Nothing is done on part of the accused. They have not done any agreement. There was no meeting of minds. Meeting of minds was not being proved by the prosecution. No agreement is being proved by the prosecution, and thus there is no conspiracy. Now, and also in the prayer provided in page 26, it is just that accused has to be let off. It's like kind of vague because they have not mentioned any sections and things. So to conclude by saying the defense counsel would like to conclude by saying that under criminal law, we have this thing called like even if 100 guilty persons escapes, one innocent shouldn't be punished. So taking that into consideration and also taking into consideration that the prosecution has failed to prove that the persons are guilty, beyond reasonable doubts, the defense counsel would like to say that the persons be acquitted from the offences charged against them. Thank you.
Your Lordship, with your Lordship, with your kind permission, I would like to just mention one line for the defense counsel, Your Lordship. Just
sir,
one, for few seconds, Your Lordship.
Then she'll also say one line. Then you will say two lines.
As you wish, Your Lordship. But I would
carry
like
on, sir. What do you want to say in one line?
Your Lordship, she mentioned that there is no agreement between them. Your Lordship, while committing a crime, there will be no agreement signed by any person. There
Agreement. Agreement. She's not talking about agreement in writing. Agreement of mind.
Yes, Your Lordship, they have oral agreements because they have taken 10% of commission. And she was also telling that there's none of their business of A1 and A2 to check what's in their bag. What in case of there's a bomb in their bag? We can't deny that, right? So Your Lordship, we just want to tell that there is nothing to assumption. There is no place of assumptions, Your Lordship, because there are public evidences and all other things to prove the prosecution's lines. But she is clearly stating that it's a prosecution story. No, it's not a story, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Your Lordship.
Yeah, good, great. Yeah. Both of you. I mean, the entire team was really good. I don't know how to give marks. Huh? You're going to decide how to give marks.
I can't do that, sir.
Why not?
Time is over for both the teams, and you can give your review if you wish to, sir.
You know, by the time they want to give review and all, the judge has already made up their mind what they has to do. And it's like going to the examination hall with last chance of reading one line.
True, sir. But sir, that is only an actual quote. Here you can tell these students how they can improve and what they did good and where they can probably improve.
They were excellent, but I must tell you, in every moot court, this is what I tell all the youngsters. You guys are far more, much better than we guys are. Let me be first very clear.
True.
But, you know, when you prepare for a moot court, and that's why I said, you have to start with a background. Like in this case, the background was that there is a case by the prosecution that XYZ were bringing counterfeit notes, and this was with the intention to create a terrorist activities, and therefore they have committed a crime under so and so. And then you immediately start. It takes just 2 minutes. And then defense says the entire prosecution story is based on the confession and also on the basis of what do you call CFSL report, which is not a conclusive evidence under Section 45 of the Evidence Act. It requires a further cross-examination to upset and then start the entire thing, which takes just 2 minutes. Because when you go to the actual court, you have to start something like this. If you straight away start, I mean, then the judge says, what do you want? Excellent performance by both of you, both the teams. So I don't think they need a review to be given because both of them have been very good.
Kumar Mukesh sir, if you would like to add on to that.
My voice was echoing. That's why I put myself on the restraint mode. That's why I not participated in that way, that much in that way, as Kirti Utpal sir has joined it. Isn't it? But I have listened all the speakers carefully. For 5 minutes I have lived because I have already informed to the organizer. But all speaker is well and keep it up. Just start yourself in the actual court. Isn't it? And best wishes to everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I request participants to leave the meeting.
Pardon?
I request all the team to leave the meeting.
Echoing.
Okay.
Sir,
No, once again echoing it. That's why I'm leaving
It
first.
is okay. It is okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
We can bear it.
Okay.
I request our judges to be in the meeting. The participants can leave.
No?
All right. Sir, if you have
Right now echoing or not?
Sir, it is echoing.
Okay. I'll meet Kirti sir in the office. Isn't it?
Sir, you
It's a
talk
fantastic
on phone.
It's a good.
My
it's a
only
good.
request that the score sheet may be ready if possible within 10 minutes.
Yes, I send
When
it
is
on the
when is the last day for giving the mark sheet?
So within 10 minutes.
10, 15
Can you give me the format of the mark sheet?
Within a minute.
All right.
170% बहुत नंबर सीबीएसई मार्किंग करवाना चाहते हो हरियाणा बोर्ड
I must tell you these kids were really good. It's very difficult to assess who was better than who.
It's very difficult.
You know when you see these Kumar आपको ये बंद करना पड़ेगा.
बंद करूं?
हाँ. You see these I don't watch TV but I sometimes watch these kids singing and all, and it becomes so difficult to say who's a better singer or who's a better dancer. It is exactly the same. These kids, some of them, it's only wherever I go, like I go to Jindal School for teaching, sometimes IP universities and all. The first thing I say, the practical side is more important because taking a degree and all, it doesn't really help.
True.
So, अब ये बार काउंसिल वाले हैं, ये जाना चाहिए, इनको बताना चाहिए वहाँ पर कैसे क्या होता है, कैसे जज उठा के फाइल
चेंज करना चाहिए सर वहाँ का करिकुलम. Actually, most of the things that we study are ultimately do not come to us for any use. And when we come to the practical field, that is when we actually learn. So ये तो होता ही है. So
where's your mark sheet का यार?
Sir, WhatsApp आ गया होगा to you as well as to Mukesh sir.
Just I was watching, I was looking at.
I'm sending you the WhatsApp. Okay.
Okay sir.
Okay. उसी में भेज दे.
तो उसी में भेज दीजिए. Not an issue. Kumar sir has left the meeting, so I think he'll send us the score sheet on that number only. And so
मैं पेपर में करके what I'll do is take a photograph and then I'll give it to you.
हाँ, sir is saying, sir, you are taking a printout of it and then you course.
Yeah,
and then you will send it to us, a copy of it. हाँ, no problem, sir.
Excellent job done by you, बच्चे. Very good.
So I am very comfortable with you even otherwise because I knew acha Kirti sir hai, okay, I'll manage. So that way also it's always.
Chalo, that was really good. You guys are doing a good job. And
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, I'll end the meeting. I'll end the meeting. You send the screen to either Surbhi ma'am's number or you can WhatsApp it to me as well.
oh, anybody, I'll give it to you.
ठीक है sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Bye, bache. Bye.